offer negotiations and signbacks. I don't understand them. Well, in today's podcast, we're going to talk about that very thing.
Watching and listening to GTR, Gary Talks Real Estate. Stories told by Realtor and Investor.
Welcome to another episode of GTR, Gary Talks Real Estate, where I share, crazy stories, interesting facts, useless information. I got to get that out of my head when it comes to dealing with real estate, whether it's as a realtor or investor. When you've been in the business as long as I have, you have some of this useless information in your head. And sometimes it's actually really relevant and important to the current situation that you find yourselves in. And that's exactly where this story takes us. I get it. As a realtor and as a buyer or seller, we absorb information, we get information through experience. And this story, at one point, I didn't know this fact either, or this procedure within an offer. And it's all around signbacks. When we submit an offer, the other side, whether it's, if you submit one, typically it's to the seller has an opportunity to sign it back to you. And then you as a buyer have an opportunity to sign it back and so forth. And you can go back and forth as many times as you want, really. And when you sign it back in the industry, as I do my air quotes, it's called a sign back. And that's what this story revolves around. So let me set it up for you. I was representing the buyer in this story, and we went and viewed a home, and I knew that there was an offer on the home, but we wanted to go see it anyways. And we went and viewed the home. My buyer liked the home and said, "Gary, I'd like to put an offer in." So on my drive home, I get on the phone and I call up the listing agent and I say, "We had a great showing," ask her some questions, and my buyer would like to submit an offer. And the listing agent responds with, "Well, Gary, I'm sorry, but we're in sign back." Now, here's the most important question that I asked that day, because I could have took that for face value in sign back, but I wanted to know who provided the sign back. Meaning, did the seller sign the offer back to the buyer, which meant the seller could receive an offer, but they wouldn't be able to do anything to it or with it until the irrevocability expired, which means there's a time frame within that irrevocable time that the offer is alive or good. And the agent said, "Well, what do you mean? The sign back, we signed it back and then the buyer signed it back to us." So to clarify things, I repeated what she had said to me. And I said, "Okay, listing agent, Mr. and Mrs. listing agent," I couldn't remember who it was at the time, but the listing agent, I said, you received an offer, you signed it back to the buyer then signed it back to you. Is this correct? "Yes." "Perfect. I'm going to submit an offer, and now you'll be in multiple offers and you can view both offers." And the listing agent at that point said, "Well, no, we can't. We're already in contract. We're already signed it back." And it's at this point that I realized that this particular listing agent, and again, I'm not calling this listing agent out, I learned this along the way too, wasn't aware of, the formalities, if you will, of signing offers back and forth. And what does that mean? Because the moment that a buyer signs it back to the seller, you could say, for the lack of a better term, it's open season. Anyone can submit an offer, whether the listing side has signed it back or the sellers have signed it back or not, right? Because it's gone back and forth. And that very moment that the buyer signs your offer back to the seller, that gave me an opportunity to submit an offer. My buyer was pretty excited. And the way I had explained it to the listing agent was, this is how I understand it. Perhaps call your broker record, call your mentor, call someone that you trust to verify this, and then let me know. And of course, we handled it perfectly. The agent called me back within a few moments. "Yep, Garrett, no problem. We can accept your offer, or we can review your offer once you send it in." Perfect. As I said, my buyer was ecstatic, was actually there in the car with me while I was having this conversation. So we we wrote up the offer. We knew that we were going to be into multiple offers, and we sent it. And then at that point, the listing agent obviously, the listing agent notified the other buyers to say that another offer had come in, and do you want to improve and changes and all of those things. So that was taken care of perfectly. But here's the thing: we submitted an offer because of some knowledge. What really that boils down to is experience. So it's important to get this experience, and you don't get this experience without being in the market, right? You got to be in the market, not on the market. As I always tell our agents and sellers and buyers, you got to be in the market, not on the market. And this was a great opportunity for us to get a home where if I just didn't ask the right questions, in the last couple of podcasts, I talked about asking the right questions. If I didn't ask the right question, who sent the sign back? We would have been out of a house, because we went forward and actually were able to acquire that house for the buyers, which was pretty cool. So you got to be able to ask the right questions and keep digging deep. And as I said before, sometimes you're not asking, or you're not getting the answer that you want. Change the question up a little bit and provide a different angle. So again, to summarize, a sign back from the buyer to the seller, that's open season. You can review other offers and so forth, and all offers will have something called an irrevocability, which means at such and such date, time and date is when that offer is valid for. I always say the offer dies. That's not really the right way to say it. Is valid for, meaning if no changes were made to that offer, the side that is receiving it could accept it, and both the seller and buyer would then be in contract. And that's kind of how that unfolds. But again, it's all coming back to asking the deeper question on signbacks and negotiations. One of my most favorite books out there is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's an Audible book. I have it in hard copy. He's done many podcasts. Search him out. It is absolutely fantastic, not only for business and for sales, but for life and understanding how people make decisions and then critical thinking, and how to never split the difference, obviously, is the book, but how to negotiate favorable terms for both sides. I urge you to check that book out. It's fantastic. I love it. Anyways, real short podcast today. I think we're going to be under 8 minutes, so that's exciting. I hope you have a great day. And in the last podcast, we talked about how I bought my first 3 properties with zero of my own cash. We did it with my folks, and it is an awesome story. And we actually also created an amazing joint venture partner out of it, and the sellers provided us with vendor take back mortgages. Pretty awesome. Go check that video out. Bye for now.